Ever feel like you've traded something precious for, I don't know, something fleeting?
Interesting question.
Well, today we're going to dive into Genesis 25.
Oh, okay.
And it's all about a bowl of stew
Really?
that kind of sets off this huge family drama. Like it echoes through generations, you know?
Wow, that's a bowl of stew with some serious consequences, huh?
Right.
So, where are we in the overall story? Catch me up.
We're picking up right after Abraham's death.
Oh, right.
Isaac, his son, he's taking center stage now.
Makes sense.
But there's like this whole cast of characters, right? You got Abraham's second wife, Keturah, and their kids.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got Ishmael's family, which is growing.
Keeping track of everyone is like a family reunion, but with some potential for fireworks, don't you think?
Totally. And then you throw in Isaac's own twin sons, Esau and Jacob.
Oh, twins. That always adds a layer of complexity.
It sure does.
So where do we start?
Let's start with Abraham's second family.
Okay.
So he marries Keturah.
Uh-huh.
And get this, he has 6 more sons.
6.
6. And remember, this is after Isaac is already born.
Wow, 6 more sons. That really shows how long and fruitful his life was.
I know, right? Even in his later years, his legacy just keeps expanding.
It does make you wonder about the family dynamics, though, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Isaac being the primary heir.
Yeah.
Imagine being one of those 6 younger brothers.
Knowing Isaac got the lion's share.
Right.
Ouch.
Yeah.
But to be fair, Abraham does provide for all his sons.
He does. And you know what's interesting?
Why?
The text specifically says that Abraham died at a ripe old age, having lived a long and satisfying life. That makes me think about the weight of his choices and how he managed his large and complex family.
Yeah. And it's also interesting that both Isaac and Ishmael come together to bury him.
Oh, that is interesting.
After all the tension between them, it kind of suggests, like, a possible reconciliation, doesn't it?
It does.
That shared act of burying their father, I mean, it says a lot.
Absolutely. It suggests that despite past conflict, they still have a bond.
Right.
A family bond.
Right.
And they both clearly recognize Abraham's profound impact on their lives.
Definitely. And speaking of Ishmael, we really see God's promise to him unfolding.
Right.
He has 12 sons, forming 12 tribes.
12 sons.
Nebaioth, Kedar, Adbeel.
Yeah.
These names just sound epic.
They do sound epic.
Like out of an adventure.
They do, but they're not just names, you know?
Right.
They represent an entire nation, a nation that's growing.
Right.
And it's a fulfillment of God's covenant.
Right, the covenant with Abraham that extends to Ishmael's line, too.
Exactly. It's like we're watching the seeds of a great nation right here in front of us.
And Ishmael lives a long life, too, 137 years.
Wow, 137 years. Can you imagine all the changes he must have seen?
Right, but it also says his descendants lived in open hostility toward their relatives.
That detail is key. 137 years is a long time to see both the best and worst of humanity.
Right, and then to have your descendants living in hostility.
It makes you wonder if maybe he saw that in his own life.
It does.
And it makes you think about those lasting consequences of family feuds and rivalries.
Like this cautionary tale, right?
Yeah.
It's woven into their history.
Mm-hmm.
Makes you wonder if things could have been different.
If they had found peace.
Yeah, peace.
It really just highlights the complexities of human relationships, even within a family chosen by God.
Okay, so let's shift gears to Isaac and Rebekah.
Okay.
They've been married 20 years.
Uh-huh.
No kids.
Oh, wow. 20 years. Imagine the emotional toll, especially back then.
I know, right? When having children was so important.
Yeah, and especially with God's promise to Abraham about his descendants, being countless, like the stars.
Right. Like they must have been praying constantly for a child.
I'm sure they were.
And then finally they have children.
Twins.
But even before they're born, there's this struggle, this rivalry brewing in Rebekah's womb.
It's like their conflict is destined,
I know.
Written into their story before they even take their first breath.
And Rebekah, being a wise woman, what does she do?
What does she do?
She goes straight to God.
Of course.
Seeking guidance.
That's what I find remarkable about her faith.
Yeah.
She doesn't just accept her difficult circumstances.
Right.
She actively seeks divine wisdom.
She does. And God's response, well, let's just say it sets the stage for one of the most epic sibling rivalries ever.
Oh, this I gotta hear.
God tells Rebekah that these 2 sons, they represent 2 nations.
Wow.
That they're going to struggle with each other from the very start.
Oh, no.
And that the older son will serve the younger. Talk about a prophecy with some serious implications.
I know. It completely upends the traditional order of things.
Doesn't it?
It really does.
It raises so many questions.
It really does. Like, how's this rivalry going to play out?
Right.
And what role do their own choices play in all of this?
Right. It's like, are they fulfilling God's plan or fighting against it?
Exactly. So many questions.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. But first, let's meet these two sons.
Okay.
Esau, the firstborn. He's described as red and hairy. I'm picturing like a lumberjack or something.
Oh, I love those physical descriptions in the Bible.
Me too.
They're never accidental. You just wait. The detail's going to come back later.
Oh, I bet it will. And then there's Jacob. His name actually means he grasps the heel.
He grasps the heel. Even his name hints at some cunning or maybe even a bit of mischief, right?
Right. Like maybe he's going to take what doesn't belong to him.
Yeah.
It's like foreshadowing the conflict to come.
It is. Their names, their appearances, even that struggle in the womb, it all points to this rivalry.
I know. It's like woven into their very existence.
It is.
Okay, so fast forward a bit. We get to the infamous birthright scene.
Oh, this is where it gets good.
Here's the setup. Esau, the hunter, he comes home famished after a long day.
Okay.
And wouldn't you know it, Jacob's making stew.
Oh, no. Talk about perfect timing.
It's like an everyday scene, right?
Yeah.
But it makes this ancient story feel so relatable.
It does. We've all been there. Starving.
Oh, absolutely. Hangry.
Angry.
And Esau, in his desperation, he makes a decision he's going to regret. He basically tells Jacob, look, I'm starving. Give me some stew and you can have my birthright.
He traded his birthright for a bowl of stew.
That's how much he undervalues it. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't get the significance.
I mean, was he even thinking straight?
Right. Well, the text actually says that Esau despised his birthright. So it sounds like it wasn't just about the stew.
So it was deeper than just being hungry.
Right. He really disregarded his inheritance, the responsibilities that came with it.
Wow. And Jacob, well, he's shrewd. He sees an opportunity and he takes it.
He does. He even makes Esau swear an oath.
Wow, he's not messing around.
I know, right? Now, the question is, was Jacob being clever, resourceful, or just plain manipulative?
Ooh, good question. I'll let our listeners decide.
It's one of those moments in the Bible that makes you really think.
It is. It challenges us to think about human nature, about our choices.
And the consequences.
Right. But you know what?
What?
Even in all this human fallibility, God's plan keeps moving.
It's like we're watching this chess game on a cosmic scale.
Exactly. Human choices and divine providence all mixed together.
And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll explore what this birthright exchange really means.
Okay.
And how it connects to God's bigger plan for humanity.
Sounds good. So last time we were talking about Esau and
Yeah, that whole birthright thing.
trading it for a bowl of stew. Like, come on, I get being hungry.
I know. What was he thinking? Did he not realize what he was giving up?
Well, you got to remember the birthright it wasn't just about inheritance.
Right.
It had a spiritual side too.
Oh, okay.
A connection to God's covenant promises.
So it wasn't just about, like, getting more stuff.
No, it was about being part of God's chosen people.
Right, right.
The line that would lead to the Messiah.
Whoa, okay.
So yeah, by giving that up, he was giving up a place in that line.
Wow, that's huge.
Huge.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that explains why it's such a big deal, even though it seems like on the surface it's just about some stew.
Exactly. And it makes you really think about Esau's character, his priorities, what was important to him.
Right, right.
And ultimately his role in God's big plan.
But wait, didn't God already tell Rebekah that the younger son would serve the older?
He did?
So wasn't it all, like, predetermined anyway?
That's a good question. Gets right to the heart of it. Free will versus, God's plan.
Free will and God's plan, yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, did God make it happen, or did Esau really have a choice?
I think that's the beauty of this story.
What do you mean?
It doesn't give us easy answers. It makes us wrestle with those big questions, about God and our choices.
Right.
And it helps us realize that God's ways, they're not always so easy to understand.
So even though Esau made a bad choice, God's plan was still, like, in motion.
Exactly. Like a divine safety net,
Right.
ensuring his purposes will happen no matter what.
Okay. That is kind of encouraging, actually.
Right. Even when we mess up,
Yeah.
even when we do things we regret, God can still use those choices
Wow.
for his plan.
So it's not all on us, huh?
No, but what about Esau? It says he despised his birthright. Sounds like he realized he messed up.
Yeah, eventually.
Yeah. And I think that's a big lesson.
Good.
Our actions have consequences.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes big ones that hurt.
Oof, yeah.
But even then, God's grace is there.
Okay, that's good. Even when we trade our,
Our birthright for stew.
for stew, exactly.
And speaking of God's grace, it's all over the Bible.
Right.
Even though Esau messed up God's promise to Abraham, it keeps going through Jacob.
It's like a thread of hope in the story, right?
Exactly. So how do you think this connects to Jesus?
To Jesus.
Yeah, it's a bit of a jump from stew to the Messiah. Yeah.
But remember, the birthright, it had that spiritual significance.
Oh, right. Right. That lineage.
Exactly.
Right.
The line that would lead to Jesus.
Right.
Esau gave that up, but God's plan continued through Jacob.
Right. Okay. I'm starting to see it.
It's through Jacob's family that we eventually get to Jesus.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It shows how those little events, even way back in Genesis, they connect to like the whole story of salvation.
They do. It's like God weaving this amazing tapestry.
Yeah.
With his own hand.
Okay, so big theological stuff, but there's also the human side of it, right?
Of course.
Like the tension between these brothers.
Oh, yeah. It must have been intense.
I know. But they do end up bearing their father together.
They do. Makes you wonder if maybe they found some peace in the end.
Yeah. Or forgiveness. Like, did they ever really work things out?
Good question. And that's something we can relate to, right?
How so?
Conflict in relationships.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes with those closest to us.
Yeah, that's true. This story makes us think about how we deal with that.
With conflicts.
Yeah, and how we try to find forgiveness.
Right.
Even in families that are, chosen by God, there's going to be those bumps in the road.
Yeah.
Rivalries, jealousy, hurt feelings. But God's plan, it keeps going.
So even with all that messiness, God's still working.
He's still working.
That's comforting. Like, God's grace is bigger than our mistakes.
Absolutely. It's a message we all need, especially when we're feeling down about our own failures.
Totally. I feel like this deep dive into Genesis 25 has really been eye-opening.
Yeah.
It's like this ancient story, but it's so relevant today.
It is. It's about human nature and God and his grace.
And it just keeps giving. Like, we've only just scratched the surface.
We have. There's so much more to discover in this chapter.
And that's what I love about studying the Bible.
Me too.
It's like a journey of discovery.
It is.
Every time you read it, you learn something new.
So what else is hidden in Genesis 25?
Yeah, what else?
Well, one thing that stands out to me is Rebecca.
Rebecca.
People don't talk about her much.
Right.
She's often in the shadow of Isaac and their sons.
Yeah, but she's important.
So important. Her prayers, her wisdom, her actions, they all contribute to God's plan.
She's a force to be reckoned with.
She is, not just watching things happen. She's shaping the destiny of her family.
Right.
And ultimately, the future of God's chosen people.
Exactly. And her story shows how important women are in God's plan.
Absolutely.
In both the Old and New Testaments.
God uses everyone, doesn't he?
Yeah. No matter who they are, or their gender, or their background.
Exactly. It's powerful, especially today.
When women's voices are often silenced, right?
Yeah. We need to pay attention to those voices in the Bible.
To their stories and their experiences.
They teach us so much about God.
They do. So we've got strong women, sibling rivalry, prophecies, and a bowl of stew that changes everything.
We do.
What else does Genesis 25 have in store?
I think it shows us God's heart, his faithfulness to his promises.
Even when we mess up.
Even when we mess up, his compassion for us when we're struggling.
Yeah.
Even when we make choices that hurt others. And most importantly, his desire to redeem us.
Like bring us back to him.
Yes. And that all leads to Jesus, the Messiah, the one who reconciles us to God.
Wow. That's a lot to think about. We could spend all day talking about this chapter.
I know, right? It's amazing.
And there's still more.
There is, and that's why we encourage you to read it yourself.
To read Genesis 25.
Let the words really sink in. You might be surprised what God shows you.
That's good advice. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Okay, so back to Genesis 25. I feel like we've uncovered so much already, but you were saying there's even more, like some hidden details we missed.
Oh, for sure. Think of it like, I don't know, like an archaeological dig or something.
Okay, yeah.
You find the big stuff first.
Right.
But then there's all these tiny details.
Yeah, the little things that add to the story. Exactly. Like those little things, they make it come alive, you know?
So what kind of details are we talking about?
Well, remember Abraham? Having those 6 sons with Keturah.
After Isaac?
After Isaac, yeah. It's interesting, right? Not your typical family.
Right, not
Well,
just like mom and dad and kids.
exactly. More complicated than that. Multiple wives, kids from different mothers. It makes you think about how families were back then.
It does.
And Abraham, he was careful to provide for all his sons.
Not just Isaac.
Right, not just Isaac. And that says something about him,
Yeah.
It shows he was responsible, a good leader.
Makes sense.
But you can also see how it could cause tension.
Oh, yeah. Like jealousy between the brothers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially with the whole, inheritance thing.
Right, the firstborn son getting everything.
Primogeniture, yeah. The text doesn't talk about any conflict directly, but you can imagine it was there.
Under the surface.
Right, like a whole other story happening in the background.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then there's the list of Ishmael's sons. Nebaioth, Kedar, all those.
Yeah, those names are important.
Not just a list.
Right, they show God's promise coming true.
To make Ishmael a great nation.
Exactly.
Like watching a nation being born.
It is.
All those sons becoming leaders of their own tribes.
Right, contributing to the story.
It's cool to think about, like, these were real people.
Yeah.
Living in real places, shaping history.
Absolutely. Speaking of real people, I keep thinking about Rebecca.
Yeah.
What a strong woman.
I know, right? She went through a lot. Infertility, difficult pregnancy, then that prophecy about her sons.
Yeah, a lot to deal with. But through it all, she relied on God.
You can really see her faith.
You can. She faced her challenges head on.
I remember that detail about Esau being red and hairy at birth.
Oh, yeah, those physical descriptions in the Bible, they always mean something.
But I still don't get what it means here.
Well, red hair, sometimes that symbolized like impulsiveness.
Okay.
A hot temper. And being hairy, maybe that foreshadows him being, like the rugged outdoorsman type.
Oh, I see. Like his appearance kind of hints at his personality, maybe even his future.
Exactly. Those details, they add another layer to the story.
I like that. So to wrap things up, what's the one thing you hope people will remember from Genesis 25?
It's this. God's plan is always bigger than our choices. Even when we make mistakes, even when we choose the easy way out.
Like Esau with that stew.
Yeah, like that. God can still use us to accomplish amazing things.
So we don't have to be perfect.
Nope. God's got it all under control. And that's a really comforting thought.
It is. Well, thanks for guiding us through Genesis 25. It's been quite a journey.
Absolutely. So much to think about.
I hope everyone listening will go back and read it themselves.
Me too.
Really dig into it and see what they discover.
There's always something new to learn.
That's the beauty of the Bible. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.